Ernest mgeba and his family of five. His wife Mary, son John, and daughters Rose and baby Emily, rolled up unannounced into his brother Jonathan mgeba's driveway in their mobile home. "What is this, brother?" his brother Jonathan asked him. So Ernest, leaving out the part about him losing his job when the factory where he had worked all his life closed, or about how his baby had been diagnosed with sickle cell anemia before their insurance ran out, and would live a life of pain without the treatment that they could no longer afford, or about how he and his wife weren't eating so that the kids could eat, how each day when he woke up and he looked into the sleeping eyes of his wife or at his beautiful sleeping children, he would not only feel his love for them filling his heart, he would also feel the worry that was stealing the joy from his heart. And he didn't know what he was going to do as he prayed night and day for a miracle. No, he didn't say any of that. He just smiled at his brother and said, "It's Christmas, brother, and I wanted to be with my family on Christmas." "Of course," said his brother, who welcomed them into his home. "Come in." Jonathan knew this would be a problem for his wife Anastasia, who had her own family coming for the holidays, her parents and her younger brother Talenka. But what could he do? He needed time to think. He knew his brother needed him, and that is all that mattered, and he knew his brother never would be visiting like this, not without a reason, unless it was important. So as they all headed back into the house, Jonathan took a quick look around, wondering what his neighbors must be thinking about the mobile home sitting in his driveway. But it's Christmas time, a time for family and good cheer. When Jonathan's wife got home from shopping, he was all smiles when he greeted her at the door. Anastasia's jaw dropped as she pointed at the mobile home sitting in the driveway. She couldn't think of the words to say. This couldn't be happening. Her brother Maxim Kryukov, it sounds like, needed a place to stay off the grid and incognito. This was no time to be calling attention to our home with this. She wasn't sure, but she wasn't sure why her brother was coming for the visit. But it always involved trouble. That much she knew. That much she always knew. And she couldn't have anything messing this up for him. He needed her on this. And she was going to be there for her brother and give him a place to stay no matter what. It was all just too important to complicate things. She could feel her anger rising, growing. She tamped it down as best she could as she looked at her husband. So her and her husband stepped in the backyard to talk this out so that the children and the guests wouldn't hear her. No, 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 she yelled. Where are my parents going to sleep? Where are they going to park? What about my brother? What are our guests going to say? My friends from the university, your friends from work. When they see that monstrosity parked in our driveway, there's an inch of dirt on it. Ba, 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 ba. Jonathan had, okay, our neighbors, they're such vipers from hell. They won't stand for this. You think they'll stand for this? She walked in a circle, thinking as she talked, are you telling me they're driven all the way from Ohio to L.A.? They've been on the road for weeks, and this is the first time you mentioned it. Didn't they call? Jonathan had nothing. He didn't know what to say. Anastasia was worried about her brother Maxim. She had almost made a mistake and mentioned her brother coming to visit, something she was supposed to be in the dark about. He was supposed to show up unannounced also. So she stopped the fight till she had time to calm down and just think. And then just said, we'll see. Don't say I didn't warn you. And she walked back into the house. After thinking about it for a while, Anastasia put on a charm offensive. Uh-oh, thought Jonathan. He was going to owe her big time for this. The university where Anastasia worked was closed for winter break, so she was enjoying her time off. The movie studio where Jonathan worked had this movie convention going on, something like Comic-Con. So he was enjoying some time off as well. Anastasia's daughter, Paulina, was the only one working, and she liked to spend as little time as possible at home with her mother and stepfather. So Anastasia's daughter, Paulina, got home late from work. Anastasia said, "Hello, Paulina." But Paulina did not answer her and went straight to her bedroom. Meanwhile, back in Brooklyn, at the Chug-a-Lug bar, 3 men grab a waitress and sit her down. Then they start asking her questions about Maxim. "Oh, no, we broke up 6 months ago," she says. "Why, that no good bum, he left me in a financial hole that I'm still trying to dig myself out of. He's a no good..." One of the guys would have none of it and grabbed her by her arm and pulled her real close to him. She could feel his breath on her face as he said, real slow and deliberate like, "Stop your lying, 'cause that ain't what we heard." Then pulling her even closer, he leaned in as if his jaws were about to open up wide and he would take her like a shark in one bite. "Now this is your last chance. Where is he?" "He left me a number," she said. The next day Ernest and his brother played musical chairs with the cars, so that the mobile home was now almost half hidden from the street. At breakfast, Anastasia thought, "At this rate they'll eat me out of house and home." But she said nothing. She was playing the long game. Here, after all, she had to think about setting the stage for her brother, Maxim, to move in for God knows how long. When her parents in Telenko go back to Brooklyn, her brother is going to need a place off the grid to hide out. And then her parents arrived, and they brought 2 of her brothers with them. Her younger brother, Telenko, who Jonathan had already met and was expecting, and also an older brother, Maxim. "Oh, how unexpected! Welcome, welcome." But Maxim was the number 1 son in that home. The sun rose and set with him, and Anastasia always had to fight for her parents' attention. Jonathan thought Anastasia hated her brother. Hated an older brother who she talked about a few times, but he could see that wasn't the case. Maxim had something hidden in the trunk of his parents' car that he had to move into the house without anyone seeing him do it. So he told them that he wasn't hungry and just grabbed a beer and sat out on the porch where he could keep an eye on the car. After lunch, Jonathan wanted everyone to see the movie studio where he worked. They have kind of like a movie convention going on there this weekend, he said, so there'll be some really big stars walking about, and you can take a tour. So Maxim saw his chance to get the house to himself, so he said, "Hey, that's a great idea. You guys should go." Then Jonathan said, for my family and also for anyone under 12, it's free, but then tickets are $50 a pop." Then Maxim cut him off and said, "It's on. I'll pay for all of you." Yeah, he did the numbers in his head, then tossed Jonathan $300 or so. That should cover it, he said. Thank you, everyone said, then headed off for the studio. Paulina woke up before her alarm. She had to be at work in a few hours. The house sounded empty. So she walked out into the hall. She heard something. So she slipped down a few steps. Someone had the awards case in the living room ajar, and they were behind it. She slipped back up the stairs and waited till she heard them in the kitchen, opening the fridge. She set her alarm clock off, and then walked downstairs. Uncle Maxim? She loved her uncle, plus she was no fool. She knew he was a very dangerous man. After they talked a bit, she said, "I've got to get ready for work." "Okay, sure," he said. So a car picked her up and she headed off to work as another car pulled up to the house. When everyone got back, the house seemed empty. Tola and Karen walked straight into the house without a key. Anastasia noticed it but said nothing and quickly relocked it. No Maxime. The house was empty. Anastasia assumed that he had gone out for a walk or something and had left the door unlocked so he could let himself back in. The next day everyone went sightseeing, but Ernest stayed at home. He was rebuilding his starter and working on a few other things in the basement all day when he heard Paulina walking around upstairs and moving something real heavy in the living room. Then he heard someone kick open a door and Paulina screamed and struggled. Ernest grabbed a large screwdriver and ran upstairs. Two men were on top of Paulina trying to rip a navy tote bag out of her hands. They had guns. He fell on one of them, plunging the screwdriver deep into him. Then he grabbed the other man's gun and they started struggling for it. Then Paulina grabbed the dead man's gun and fired.